stage our host, Jacqueline Springer, co-director of the film, Andy Baber, producer of the film, Paul Toogood, and, ladies and gentlemen, Ice-T.
Hello, and thank you all for coming. Just further to what Stuart asserted. Just to let you know, we're going to have about 15 minutes of conversation, hopefully about 5 to 10 minutes of questions from yourself, and then you'll get to see the film that everybody has claimed that they've seen and loved, and then you can join in that confirmation. So, I'd like to introduce Ice-T, of course, and Baber. I'm going to direct my first question to you. I'm going to quote back some lyrics. Forgive the British accent. In 1988 on Radio Sucker, you said, "To make a record ain't hard. To make it mean something, that's a job." Mm-hmm. Making this documentary, did it bring back the beauty to that 9 to 5?
I mean, to make a record, I guess what I was saying is that to make something important is what's difficult. And I think that this film is important. You know, I've been using that word in my life for a while. And, you know, we can make a record and you can have fun and enjoy yourself at a party and club and whatever, but will that change somebody's life? Not unless somebody gets pregnant that night. No, it's not. You know, so it's kind of like trying to do things that are important. If you take that word and say, you know, is this piece of work important? That's a good bar to set. And I think that this film is an important film because hip-hop is not just the music, it's something that has totally changed the world. It's something that's totally revolutionized culture worldwide. It's opened up lines of communication between everybody. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for hip-hop. So explaining it a little bit more in depth was important, and I think that's what the film does and set out to do, and it did.
Gentlemen, Andy and Paul, could you explain to your audience your connectivity, how mired in music and the visual arts you are? Because many people would assume that, okay, so it's and what we forget and what's been overlooked is that British money funded this documentary.
Interesting. I think serendipity is probably the right word. You know, how we came to meet. My wife is an old friend of George, our executive producer, Ice's manager. And so, you know, but Andy and I Andy's made lots and lots of music documentaries, and I've made lots as well about the creative process. And I guess our skill set fitted Ice's vision, you know, and it was just really good fortune. Also, I think the way that we in Britain just are in awe of rap. I think we really appreciate it. I think that the way we look at it is different to the way people in America look at it. I think we really value it, and I think maybe that's contributed to you know, how seriously we took every single person in the film. You know?
It was perfect. You know, my first idea to do the film, I was just going to shoot it with video cameras. I actually was going to send the cameras to each artist and have them do it themselves.
Like those flips.
Yeah, I just was like, you know, it'll be something small, underground. And I talked to my manager, George, and George says, I might know the right people. And they made connections with Paul, and they were overwhelmed. It was like, you know, they hit me, it's brilliant. We're ready. And I've always, in my career, I've worked with people that are the most passionate. Sometimes not the most money, just the most passionate, because that's what's going to get you through hard times. And they definitely wanted to do this movie. There was no way I was going to tell them no. And every day when we shooting something like this is difficult. But even the boom operator was like, that's Rakim, like everybody was like this, and no one got tired. And sometimes, when you're doing a rap, something like this, you got to sit and wait on people. But it's okay. We're waiting on Snoop Dogg. It's okay.
And also, we should say at this point that obviously Ice is one of the stars of Law and Order, which means that he works every day as an actor.
Moving targets. then.
So we would get someone's availability, and then Ice would say, well, yeah, but I've got to work, you know. So we would end up shooting at weekends, and very often, I mean, so many of the scenes in the film, I can remember exactly what time it was. It'd be like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, you know. Of course,
6 in the morning.
yeah. We didn't actually do it 6 in the morning, did we? We did some. I did fall asleep on my feet once.
There's a lot of collaboration that went on in it. Like, I remember we were trying to figure out, because we didn't know how we were going to put this thing together. So I remember one time Paul was like, okay, Ice, we need you to go to Harlem and walk around in the night.
Just that.
And I'm like, what am I going to be doing? He says, you're just going to walk around. We need this. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, what? He said, how are we going to do the voiceovers? The voiceovers that we knew we wanted to do to weave it together, we need something, so we just think if you just walk around, that'll be cool enough.
And we like the idea. So what we did in the end was we thought, you know, because a lot of television documentaries have quite a preachy feel to them with lots and lots of voiceover, and obviously there's so much content in this story that we just wanted to have. So really what we used was an idea of Ice's thoughts. So you see him walking.
Yeah, inside
this
his
is inside his head, you know. It works. It's a device.
It works. But when you see the movie and I'm walking around, at the time, I don't know what the fuck I'm walking around.
what Ice doesn't know.
It looks dope when you see it. You're like, man, he's thinking right now.
What he doesn't know is that in our notes internally, these shots are called Ice Heroics.
That's true.
You'll see what we mean.
But you actually shot more than 100 hours worth of footage with your subjects, so clearly there's going to be a DVD release every year.
Rebooted.
Well, do you know what? On a serious point, we have 76 hours of interviews. But, you know, in the real DNA of this project, it's really important that it's not a commercial kind of bum rush thing. So, you know, we will not be flogging this one to death. You know, some people's interviews are incredible. Some people's are just good. Some people gave us 2 hours. Some people gave us 10 minutes or one line that ends up being one of the most important lines in the film. So you have to be very careful.
There's a scene in it. I mean, when you see Raekwon, that interview happened during a concert. Like the only time we could get him, and it wasn't even his concert. So we're running, and you know, of course, you know, every person I called, they said, "Not a problem, Ice. You got me. No problem. No problem. No problem." Now getting them, that was another thing. So now I'm like, "Where are you?" "Yo, I'm in Long Island. I'm at a concert." And so we would just rally up the troops, and we would roll in there. Now they're performing. This is happening like that. We got a full camera crew, and we're just trying to get an interview, which was supposed to be 15 questions, but might only got a couple of questions, and they're distracted, and everything is crazy, but it worked.
4 in the morning.
That leads me on to the next question I wanted to ask, because the art of rap in itself, the title in itself, it lends itself to a lot of self-perception. You know, are you going into the academic element? Are you going into the sociological, the tradition and the history of African American oratory? Or are you looking at, from the first wave, how this took hold and how that then subsequently influenced a subsequent generation? That first table meeting, how did you decide on the structure? Was it going to be chronological, regional?
No structure.
To be honest, what I remember from the first meeting was the three of us were having eggs Benedict, I think.
Yeah,
do you remember?
right.
And we just met, and Icy said, well, okay, so if we were robbing a bank, I'm walking in with the gun, you're cracking the safe, and he's driving the getaway car.
For some reason,
But it pretty much like it was, that's what it was.
For some reason, I use crime analogies and everything.
Can I say that I think that, you know, we've talked about this a lot, but, you know, this is not the history of hip-hop, okay? And, you know, you'd have to have a sort of 75 DVD box set, I think, to do that. We don't use any archive, so we're not retelling stories. We ask people, I just wanted to ask people why they do it, how do you do it? And those are the themes, and, you know, I hope that what we've created is an unusual impression of an incredibly gifted group of people whose art has changed the world.
We really went to each person. I had 15 questions that we had on a page. And they were different questions. They were all questions I'd never been asked. And when I would call people, I'd call Nas, and somebody said, look, I got to interview you, but I'm not going to ask you about the money, the cars, the girls, the jewelry, the beef. No, just the craft, just things to do with that. And everybody was like, well, no one ever asks us those questions. And right now we live in a very how do you say it, gossip-based culture. And people are more concerned with who I'm sleeping with, what car I have, versus the craft. And artists don't get asked those questions anymore. And you'll watch the video and you go, how much did the video cost? You know, people are just into numbers and BS, really. So by coming at these guys with these types of questions, you get answers that you don't normally hear. And that's the basis of it. Now, after we did all these questions, Paul and everybody sat back and said, well, we got how many hours?
76 of interviews.
Now we got to make a movie out of this because they're just groups of interviews. And that's when it got difficult.
And obviously the premiere at Sundance in January, that had to go to time, so you had to cut this down. I remember watching Ice Loves Coco on the E! Channel, and you were struggling with, who am I going to cut out? I don't want to have to do this.
That was cutting from 3 to 2.
Reality.
We started out with like an 8-hour, like it was.
Well, we had 76. So but it was an extraordinary process. The edit. I tell you, I think a really good example is Grandmaster Caz. Okay, arguably the greatest, like the Robert Johnson of rap. No one really knows him, but he wrote Rappers Delight. He's never been paid, and he gave us the most incredible access. He said, "Come to my home." Now his home is in the South Bronx, in the projects. It's a humble home. He could have said, "I'll meet me in an uptown restaurant, buy me a big dinner, give me some money." He gave us unlimited access. We went back again and again. He was incredible, and so we made him the star of the film.
It's so very important that you gave him that room to breathe, because in many respects he's been given a platform that has been denied him within history.
It's just a stone cold natural, though. It was easy.
Yeah, but the thing of it is when you're doing a film like this, Paul told me when we got started, he said the trick to this is access, and he says you have access.
That's it.
So we never called anybody we didn't know. I only went to my address book. If I couldn't make the phone call to the rapper himself and say, hey, I need you, I can't go by your manager. Your manager, we're going straight, because if you can get me on the phone and I say yes, I'm going to be there.
So there were no managers, no PAs, no cars, no catering.
None of that.
None of the bullshit.
Nothing.
It was like,
Making nothing.
very often it was like, so where you at? And I would say, okay, and Coco would then text us the address.
Yeah.
We'd all jump in the car.
It's like military, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'd be there.
I'm at a
Dre's
sneaker
house.
shop right now. I'm at Redman. I'm at a sneaker shop. Come
Get over
shoot me. and we just rolled on them. And you got to remember, when you're doing a movie like this, you're not paying people. Everybody's doing it for a favor. So, it was just respect and love. And, you're trying to get these people are flying all over the world. And, we're trying to get Ludacris. We're trying to get Busta Rhymes after the New York premiere gave me the best compliment ever. Because Busta's one of my best friends, and I'm trying to get him. And he's moving, and then finally I'm like, okay, we can shoot you. He's like, yo, I'm in Africa, dog. So at the end, when he saw the movie, he stood up and he looked at me and he said, Ice, I am buried in regret. That he wasn't able to make the tag, but, it was crazy. Then we got Dr. Dre, and the movie's called Something from Nothing. That means, I started rapping before anybody had ever bought a car rapping. So it was nothing. It wasn't like, oh, it's hot on the radio, and so therefore I want to try to do it and get rich. Nobody was paid. It wasn't, when I started doing it, people were like, you're going to waste your time rapping? We're over here doing this, getting this money, and you're going to waste your time? That's silly, But then at some point in the film, you'll see Dr. Dre's house, and you'll see something. Yeah, you'll see what the result of this small seed turned out to be,
Now, Lord Jamar, he coined that term upon which the title rests, but he also made a really valid point, something that I'd really like to discuss, given the sort of the global financial climate at the moment. He talked about the fact that cuts that went rife through American school system actually just took away so many after-school projects.
All the arts.
Music.
It took
No
away the
musical
arts.
instruments out of schools, gone.
And I remember Chuck D has talked about the fact that the worst thing that happened to rap was R&B, Reagan and Bush. Could you expand?
It gave us a lot of ammo. It gave us a lot of ammo. It's kind of hard to diss Barack. You know, we like Barack, so now we can't say fuck the president. You know, it's rough. You know, it's time to throw the monkey wrench in there. You know, but you know, you needed it. I mean, when we had Bush, and it was great. Chuck titled him "Son of a Bush." You know, we had 2 of them, but you know, it's kind of like, you know, there is a lot of things going on. There are a lot of social issues. There are a lot of things that are happening today, and that's what I kind of would like to see the new artists kind of reflect into and get away from a lot of the pop stuff. It's like, I'm aware, you know, there's parties going on. That's great. I understand you made a few dollars, you bought a car, but the world can be changed with hip hop. And don't forget that part of it, because that's the part they put it where it is. Not dance records, not the pop records. It's the hard stuff that got it to where it is. So, you know, if you're going to make an album, okay, you know, tell the girls to shake their butts, do all that kind of cool, you know, but then talk about something. Because if you don't talk about something, I don't know who you are. I want to know where you stand. I want to know some of your opinions. You know, don't be afraid to shake the bush and say something. I had the President of the United States come after me, and I'm still here. I'm very well renowned director. In the movie, I say, respect is earned in combat. You know, if you don't fight any wars, then people don't really know what you cut like. They want to see you take on things in life. If you really want that true respect down the road, it's like when my fans see me, they don't go, "Oh, Ice, I like that beat." They go, "Right on, man. Like, this is something you're doing." And if you want to be about that, if you want to be like a Tupac or some of these great MCs, even a female MC, say something. Say something.
Can I just say that obviously we spent hundreds of hours with Ice in the street, walking down the street. People come up to Ice and they ask Ice to speak about important issues. Please say this in the media. It happened every single day, and that's what Ice means about saying something that means something.
Yeah, if you get the chance to get on the mic, you know, if you stand in this room, right, you get to speak to 200 people. When you get on the radio, you get the mic, you get to speak to millions. Every person won't have that opportunity. So your job is sometimes to take what they're asking. You're now a spokesperson. And take advantage of that. Don't burden people down. Don't drive people crazy with it. I think that's like why even when you see Public Enemy, as heavy as they are, you got flavor. You've got like a little relief from that, because it can become heavy.
Full of fun.
So flavor kind of makes you kind of forget that Chuck is just drilling you in your head with information. But at the end of the day, it's a good thing. We need that.
Yeah.
One of the among its many successes, but one of the premier successes of the documentary is that it doesn't create a generational shift. Like, oh, you know, Ice has gone to meet so many of his peers, and he's just gone to show that the OGs make better rap than the new generation. That generational shift is never asserted, because the artistry, irrespective of whoever's timeline,
It's very natural. The fact is, these are Ice's friends. You know, lots of people keep mentioning, "Oh, there's not enough women in the film." Not enough for who? You know, Ice doesn't happen to hang around with 25 female rappers as his best friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we tried to get Latifah.
We did,
You know, I wanted to get Little Kim in the movie, but honestly, maybe this is even a point. There's 35 guys in the movie and 2 women, but if there was 15 to 1 ratio, it's about what it is. So showing that there's less women rappers, it's real.
Maybe it's
real.
positive. We'd like there to be more.
But I would have liked to have more. That's not what the film is about. The film is more like if I were able to just call all those people and got them all into the room at the same time and just did interviews. You know, a random group of rappers. It just so happens that I know a lot of the best. So people start saying, "Oh, well, why didn't you get this person, or why didn't you get that person?" I'm like, that's why they make movie cameras, so you can make a movie. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It was the best we could do was 70 hours.
But in terms of one of my favourite things about the cast was Talking about the generations, one of my favourite things about the cast was that some days I would say, right, we're going to go and hook up with this guy, and I'd say to Andy, I've never heard of him. And so he'd look him up, and then you'd be thinking, I'm so tired. I'm kind of looking forward to going to see Eminem, but who is this guy? And then you get there, and it's the best bit you've ever heard. And it's just, so talent will, Joe Budden's a great example. I mean, I knew who he was, but I mean, I shall tell you, large tears rolling down my cheeks as this guy, well, you'll see what he does.
But the treatment of the actual deliveries was so important, because you mentioned that you just did not want archive footage because the format of some docs is archive footage.
It has to be fresh.
If you
That's
go,
the idea.
these days we can all talk about a Led Zeppelin concert in 1974 and all go home and watch it online. It's not filmmaking, and I think we had a responsibility to try and create something new, create a new work of art, if you like, which then people get to discuss, and that's what we've done.
But none of the artists knew what I was going to ask them. So when I asked them to rap, they rapped on the spot. If I asked them, I would say, when they start doing their freestyles, I'm like, say something nobody's never heard before. Say something that you consider creative. But they're rappers. You better know how to rap. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if somebody hands me, I better know how to rap. That's what I do. Come on. Oh, wait a minute. Hold up. I don't really do that. Yeah, I don't really do that. I'm not prepared. That's what you do. That's like telling a boxer to throw a punch. Wait, hold up, man. Wait a minute. What do I do? So they just got off, and one of the questions I ask is, give me a rhyme that you carry around in your head. Just somebody else's rhyme. And that was fascinating.
Right.
Because you never knew what they were going to say. Yeah.
Out of all of those rhymes that you witnessed, what touched you? I'll ask you the same question. Which one touched you the most?
Oh, the instantaneous rhyme that popped out of Eminem, that was unprepared. Not his rhyme, just out of nowhere. He just started quoting somebody else. I don't want to give it away, but it was crazy.
What about you?
Joe Budden, Another Day, Another Struggle.
Yeah, that was dope.
Extraordinary.
I think for me it was Grandmaster Caz, because at that particular point when we went round, I knew about hip-hop, I knew about the music, but I didn't know just about the lyric, and when he spit that in his Bronx apartment, I suddenly understood everything.
Also, Kaz writes a rhyme in real time while they held the cameras on him. He did it on, in real time for the film, and then he says it. It's crazy.
Even though I coughed and interrupted him, but he did.
That was you.
All right, so I've got another quote before we throw the audience questions open. In Rolling Stone, you were quoted by saying, Ice Cube says he's running for president, Sister Souljah will be vice president, Chuck D will be the Secretary of State, KRS-One will be the Secretary of Labor, and you will be the Secretary of Defense.
Definitely. I got to have the guns.
Well, it's the election this year. Do you still stand by?
Nah, no, that's a joke.
I know.
People always will ask me, am I going to get into politics? I'm like, I told you I got out of crime.
So we have questions from you, but you have to wait until the roving mics get you so that we can pick you up so that you can then be heard on the recording. So there's somebody, whoa. Right at the front.
Right here in the front. Let's do this guy. Dead center.
No pressure.
That's the post
No
position.
pressure. I got into poetry because of rap and hip hop. I swapped my first album, Rhyme Pays, for a copy of Stallone's Rambo First Blood Part 2. And because of hip hop, I got into poetry. Is there any poets that you're into or you've read over time that have inspired you?
I did this thing in front of the Indianapolis Philharmonic Orchestra. I did Langston Hughes.
I love Langston.
Yeah, and I read him with a jazz quartet and a full orchestra behind me, and it was crazy. But it's all forms of poetry. I think the worst thing I heard about poetry is when I'm thinking I'm becoming a great poet, and somebody told me, well, the lowest form of poetry is rhyme. I'm like, the lowest form? And so then I started to read poetry, and I'm like, oh, so this is poetry? I can write this shit all day. It doesn't have to rhyme?
Anybody else has a question? Oh, there's somebody on the second, and then we've got somebody up there.
Thank you for the double autograph.
Okay.
What would you say is a defining moment of your life that actually made or changed you? What was the thing that made you what you are now?
Oh, wow. What
So,
made me what
I'm
I
nearly as old as you, so I can get away with that one.
Well, I think the biggest achievement in my life is just transitioning from the streets to being a legitimate citizen and making records. And there's a big jump from being somebody in the street to really working and doing things like legitimate people do. It's like a weird warp that if you're from the crime world, you just handle things differently. And, you know, you don't pay taxes. That's a great part of it. But just getting over to become legit and be an Ice-T, and even maybe somebody would cross me and you can't go see them, you can't go beat them up. They got lawyers, you know, and it's this weird warp of, and then you get broke when you're legit. You just can't go get money. You have to sit and trip and challenge. It was like a withdrawal, you know, to actually just getting over here to this other world. But when you trade infamy for fame, there's nothing like it. Because when you're infamous, you have never done anything. You're just known for what you have. You know? So in other words, say, who's Whitey? No, Whitey ain't that. No, he got the Benz. He got the jewelry. He got, oh, that's who he is. When you're a criminal, that's what you're known. You haven't done anything. So becoming somebody who has done work in art and then have people just respect you and then just to put that behind you, that was the biggest thing for me. And unless you've ever really been on the other side, you won't know how big that is to just get on into the legit world and be here happy and safe and not have to worry about the feds. And,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah.
Props.
Pass the mic down to the...
Hi, this is a question for all of you. You said there were 76 hours of interviews, and obviously there's less than 2 hours in the film. Are you going to do anything with all the rest of the footage? There must be so much that you had to leave out. And also, was anyone you interviewed annoyed that they didn't make the final cut after 2 hours of interviewing them or anything?
Yeah, you take it. I'll take the second half.
The second half, yeah, I'll take the first bit. Yes, we're going to do some more things on our DVD. There's, I think, 80 minutes of extra footage. So, you know, it's nearly a whole movie again. And we have plans, but, you know, in the way that I think this film is not like any other film I've ever seen, we don't want our release strategy to be like any other release strategy. So we're just waiting for the right tasteful way of doing this. I mean, one of the ideas we had was to release some of the rushes in their entirety. So, for instance, KRS-One, very spiritual person, gives things away. You know, maybe we might think about releasing his entire interviews, which would be 2.5 hours. You know, of absolute masterclass.
Madness.
Just extraordinary. You know, give that to the world. You know, so it's not just about, you know, there's some certain other rap titles that I won't mention who've just released all of the shit bits and then they've released the even shitter bits the next year. We don't have any bad bits, by the way, but it has to be as whatever we do has to be worthy, you know, a successor to the film. So we don't know is the straight answer.
And it was extremely difficult to cut people or find out who weren't going to be in the film, and I had to make those phone calls. And, you know, like some people, we had to figure out, well, are they represented? Although they're not in it. I'll give you an example. Like in the group from LA, the Alcoholics, you got King T, you got Catastrophe, you got Exhibit. Well, we shot all of them, but we couldn't use all of them because they're being represented. So we got Catastrophe in the, Tash is in the bonus footage. King T's in the bonus footage, and we used Exhibit. We had to make those calls, like, okay, we got a lot of people from Brooklyn, so it was difficult to try to figure a way to break it down to 2 hours, it was hard.
We
But
had those themes as well, of course, which we were addressing, and sometimes somebody happens to speak more
Yeah.
clearly on a theme, you know.
yes, so you got to buy the DVD when it comes out. You're gonna get other people and other stuff, but it wasn't easy. And I'm the one that had to say, you know, man, you know all the trouble we took through to get you to shoot you and get you out there in the rain that night.
Yeah, you did.
You're not in the cut that made. But look, homie, yo. But everybody, you know, love is love, and you know, I know they was pissed at me, but you know, it's just what it was. It's the biz, and you know, they'll all reach the day of light eventually, and you know, what can I say? One of my guys, Smooth the Hustler, who raps with me. They didn't make the film, but what I did was I let him make the music video. If you go to YouTube and put the Art of Rap official song by Smooth the Hustler, he did the music video. So he was happy.
And they were great, though.
Killed
There's
it.
nothing
Killed
wrong with any of it.
109 MCs, he called it.
Just great. Great.
I've got one final question. There was a lady that was stood here, and you got the mic?
Who?
Just behind you, just
Whoever got their hand up over there.
Hi, I think the greatest.
You got a low voice for a lady. That's a man. That's a man.
A lady had her hand up on his behalf as well.
I think the greatest impact of hip hop is that it's gone into other cultures. So today you've got French hip hop, Islamic hip hop, African hip hop. How aware are you of how it's gone into other cultures, and is this something that you guys will kind of investigate at a later date?
Yeah, I mean, that's the art of rap too, international rap. I mean, I'm very aware of it. I think hip hop is the type of culture that it's intoxicating. When you hear it, when you see a DJ, no one can watch a DJ cut records or watch a graffiti artist style or watch a break dancer and not say, I want to mess with it, you know? And, you know, from touring, I've been all over the world. You know, next time you come back, there's going to be rappers. Like when we went to Brazil for the first time, there weren't any rappers. I went to China, you know, you come back and there's a crew. It's just amazing. And like I say, the UK, this is the first place I came when I, you know, left the United States. And when I got here, you know, they were already trying to rap. I was just trying to rap. It was like my first record. But it's a global movement. I mean, they're rapping in every language. And
South African.
yeah, it's amazing. I can tell if you on beat. Like if I listen, at least with a British rapper, I know what the fuck they saying, right? I can hear. So if I'm listening to somebody like, you know, from Germany and they rapping, like Germans sound like they like, I'm like, that shit sounds hard, son. I don't know what you just said. Sounds hard. I know you. What did you just say? And then like the Brazilian rappers, they rap about killing the police. Like you think my shit's crazy? They like hate the police down there. I could have ran for president in Brazil. So, you know, one thing you will learn in this film, I'll end it with this. Rap is a vocal delivery. Hip hop is the culture. A lot of people can rap and not be part of the culture. You know, you listen to the girl, wake up in the morning looking like P. Diddy or whatever the fuck she's saying, and then she's rapping, but what do you think she really knows about hip hop? So you don't have to nowadays know hip hop to rap. But to be hip hop, you should know the history. So if you feel you're part of the culture, this movie will help you understand the culture that you love a little bit more. If you're just a rapper, then you just rap. You know, you're the rapping weatherman, like the guy I saw, you know. He probably wouldn't know Grandmaster Flash from Monday. He doesn't know that. But to be part of the culture, you should know the knowledge. If I was a jazz player and I played a trumpet and I didn't know who Miles Davis was, it would be unacceptable. All right? There it is. I'll show the movie.